people underestimate how much their space affects them. Well, no wonder you don't feel good right now. Like you've got junk drawers, you've got piles of stuff and Amazon boxes that you just haven't thrown away. All those little things you don't think matter are really cluttering up your mind. Just go clean your space. Honestly, like to me, that's like step one. And if you're ever in that situation, my advice would be like, if you're just like feeling down, grab a trash bag and you're going to just open up the trash bag and you're just going to walk around your house. Toss, toss, toss. And that energy, I swear, ignite this refresh of your space and it will get you out of a funk, I promise.
My name is Francesca Phillips, and you're listening to the Good Space Podcast, a show where we help you find peace and power in work, relationships, and intuition. Welcome to the Good Space Podcast. Today, we are talking to a very special guest, someone that I've actually known for probably 8 or 10 years. Like it's been a long time.
It's more. I think I met you when I was 19.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I'm going to be 34 in March. So.
Oh yeah. So way longer than 8 or 10 years. So yeah, Taylor is someone I have loved being friends with over the years. We both have built businesses. We've both gone through evolutions. Like she's helped me so much in my life. And I'm excited to share with you her talent and gift as an interior designer / home design influencer. And yeah, I'm just going to get into it and give you like a background on Taylor, even though I know her, and then we'll get into it. So Taylor is an interior designer who lives in Charleston, South Carolina with her husband, LJ, and their dog, Jet, who is super cute. And Taylor went to design school in NYC at the Fashion Institute of Technology, where she graduated with a degree in fashion design and then went on to design menswear for Tommy Hilfiger for several years. And at the end of 2019, Taylor decided to leave fashion design and transition into interior design, which was her first love. Taylor is now a full-time interior designer and home design influencer for her company, Home Tailored. Through her blog, hometailored.com, and her social media channels, Taylor hopes to be a helpful online resource for people when it comes to designing and putting together a home that you truly love. For Taylor, good design is much more than just pretty aesthetics. It's also about how your space makes you feel, which we are so on board with at the Good Space. And her goal is for hometailored.com to be a go-to place and resource for making a home that truly makes you feel good. Taylor, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. And I just want to say likewise to you for like always being there for me throughout our 20s and now 30s. And you've been like a rock for me. So I'm so glad we've been friends all these years.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And also, by the way, anyone listening, her weekly emails are amazing. Every Friday, she sends out these finds, whether it's clothing or like home stuff. And it's like, especially around the seasons, like non-tacky Christmas items that are actually elevated and classy. And it's like, she saves you so much time. And I literally have bought so many things from her email. So if that's something that sounds good to you, just sign up right now. Anyways, yes.
Oh,
Taylor.
Thank you. Yeah. I created the Friday Favorite Finds email because as an interior designer, I'm constantly shopping and working with clients all the time. And I'm just seeing all the things. So I was like, you know what? I should just round up my favorites from every week and give you like the top 6 things. And that's kind of how that happened. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. It's so helpful and so useful. It makes it much easier. Why don't you tell people like what got you into interior design and then transitioning to home design influencer? Like, what does that mean for you and what kind of transformation do you help people create?
Well, it's funny because looking back on things, it's always easy to see things in hindsight, right? But I had picked fashion design before, but I actually always loved interior design more. And the reason being is I grew up with my grandparents, Walt and Joy, who I like to joke were kind of like the original Chip and Joanna Gaines, because my grandmother is an interior designer. She's actually from New York City, ironically. And my grandfather owns his own construction company. And so just growing up, I was constantly surrounded by it. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and very close to them. So design in general has just always been second nature to me because of my grandmother. And she's truly the most talented person I know. So I think when it came time to go to design school, I had thought between interior and fashion. But I think because my grandmother was like so good at what she does and she still like could design around me, she's incredible. And I love her. She's like my mentor. I was like, oh, I'm going to go into fashion because I kind of was like, I can't do that, even though it's so stupid because my grandma like the most supportive person in the world. So, I did fashion for a few years, and then I was just like, anytime like I had downtime from work, like even like what I followed on Instagram, honestly, I think the type of accounts you follow says a lot, because everything was always interior design, whether it was like an interior designer or like a DIYer or whatever. Like I just always, all my downtime was around my home and making it look better. And that's just kind of been my obsession. And so when I found myself really just unhappy and burnt out in fashion design, I was like, if I'm going to make a career change, like it needs to be the thing I love the most and comes totally second nature. And I had a lot of people in my life in various areas kind of telling me like, why aren't you doing this? And I, had always done interior design kind of on the side for people. I've done my brother's home. I've done some people he's worked with in their homes. And anyways, long story short, I just kind of shifted into it. But I think the reason being is I just love having a space that makes you feel good. Like you were kind of saying in my intro, like, yes, I think interior design is important because we all like the beautiful aesthetics, but I think what draws me the most to it is the spiritual side of it, of just those feel good feelings and that coziness and watching a good movie or having a clean house and the candles lit and you're just relaxing and reading a book. It's like, that's what drives me.
What is it about the space around you that does make you feel good? And did you always know that connection was there? Like, did you always know, okay, if my space is clean and if it looks good and it feels good, like I feel good? Or was that a gradual like awakening to that?
Okay. So as a kid, I was a very weird kid because I've always have loved to clean. And to this day, like if you know me, like, Francesca, like cleaning is like joyful for me. Like most people hate cleaning. Like I love it. It's my jam. It like de-stresses me. And even as a young child, like I loved to clean. And I was very fortunate growing up that we did have a cleaning crew that would come and help in our home. But like I liked cleaning so much and cleaning my way that like I would ask my mom, like, can they please like not clean my room and do my laundry? Because that's how much I love it. So I don't think as a child I understood why I loved it, but there was definitely some awareness of like, I feel good when I do this, right? When I clean my room. And it wasn't just about cleaning. It goes hand in hand. And actually, if you ever watch me clean my house, I look like a psychopath because I take forever to do it because I'm cleaning and simultaneously designing at all times. Like I will clean a room and I'm restyling the bookshelves or I'm reorganizing the drawers. And like, I have a hard time disconnecting cleaning and designing, if that makes sense. So on some level, I think I understood it, but I didn't really understand it like intellectually as a child. But there definitely is a connection. And that's why I love interior design so much, of like your space, not just looking good, but feeling good and in the cleanliness, and you feel better. It's like if you were to go and like wake up in the morning and you start your day eating fast food for breakfast or something, most likely you're going to continue to kind of be lax about what you eat that day, right? Because it's like the starting point. And then you just are like, well, I already, ate McDonald's for breakfast and I'll go get whatever for lunch and dinner. And it's just like, it's a crap show for the rest of the day, at least for me. But if, you start your day with a clean space, I feel like it positively affects everything else. I'm more likely to meditate. I'm more likely to get my workout in. And it's just this clean, I don't know, starting point, I guess, if that makes sense.
And it's almost like I'm hearing that when you have that clean space, it's almost like you're communicating to yourself what your standard is or like what you value, if that makes sense. Like if my place is dirty and like cluttered and not clean, then that's probably a reflection of how I'm feeling.
Oh yeah. Like what's the quote? I'm probably messing up. It's something like a cluttered space is a cluttered mind, right? And I firmly believe that. And if there's one thing you could take away from this interview today, that I swear to you will change your life. If every morning you can just wake up and make your bed first thing, it sets the tone. I really am a firm believer on that. And there was even, I can't think of his name. I wish I knew it off the top of my head, but there's this guy who gave this big speech. I think he even wrote a book about it, about literally making your bed first thing in the morning and how it positively affects your day. And he goes on to say, like, you know what, even if you have a crappy day, at the end of the day, you're going to come home to a bed that you made, and it will start for a better tomorrow. And I don't know, I like that. And I think it just sets that tone, like you're saying, for the day, when you're like, this is clean, it's crisp, it's fresh, and it's something for yourself. Like, obviously, no one's going to really come in your house every day and see if your bed's made, but that's not the point. Like, it's for you. It's for you to like, respect yourself, that like you deserve to have a bed that's beautifully made and makes you feel good. So when you go to bed at night, it's like this clean thing. Like, we all work hard, and I think we deserve a nice, beautiful, comfortable bed to go home to at night, So it's those little things. It really is the little things that make a big difference.
Agreed. And my husband would 100% agree with you about the bed because he cannot function because right now he's working from home most of the time. From our couch, you can see into our bedroom. And if it's not made, he's like, I can't function. Like, it's like a literal, it's a game changer for him when it's made. I love that. What is the biggest struggle that you see people have? Because I know there's so many different things that can be like, it could be clutter, it could be dirty, it could be like, you just have things thrown together. Like, what is the biggest struggle people have with having a home that makes them feel good?
This is one of my favorite things to talk about. I've worked with a lot of people in their homes. I've seen a ton of homes in my time, even if it's not a client, just obviously friends and family and whatnot. I used to live in New York City for like 5 or almost 6 years. And obviously, living in New York City, you have to be very particular about your home because they are smaller by nature because everyone's in apartments, and you have to get creative of things having multiple uses and whatnot because space is limited. So the one thing I've seen that I think is the biggest problem is whether you live in an apartment or a house or whatever. I think because life is so seasonal, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, that never really changes. We're always evolving, right? And changing. And the biggest mistake I see people make when it comes to their homes is not committing to where they currently are. And what I mean by that is I've seen, and I especially saw it in New York City even more, is people think, oh, I'm just in this lease for a year, so I'm not going to hang art on the walls, or I'm not going to, invest in nice bedding. And it's like, well, why? Because that bedding and that art can go with you. You know what I mean? And for so many years, I rented from the time I was, moved out of my mom's house when I was 18 until I was 30 and moved in with my fiance, now husband, where we owned a home. I rented for so many years, and I obviously love interior design, and I was not about to let a rental feel like a rental. Like, I was that girl that like painted the walls and changed the light fixtures. And, I feel like I could have a whole business on just talking about making a rental feel like a home, because I'm a very big believer. Because here's an example. Everyone thinks, oh, I'm not going to be in this space for that long, or this isn't my forever home, so I'm not going to put the money or effort into it. And I just really strongly disagree with that, because you just never know. For example, I lived in the same 490 square foot studio apartment in New York City for 5, almost 6 years. When I moved into it, I would have told you there's no chance I'm going to be in this apartment for more than a year. But thank goodness I am the way I am when it comes to design. And I really designed it and made it a home because I was there for almost 6 years. I saw that all the time, especially in New York. It's like people ended up staying in these apartments that they thought was just a year, and a year is like nothing. The older you get, it's like a blink of an eye. I used to think a year was so long. And so to answer your question, I just think the biggest mistake is not committing to where you are, even if it's not your dream home or the city you want to be in. Like, you're there now, and that's good enough. And so you might as well make it feel amazing, not because you're going to be there forever, but because energetically, when your space looks and feels the way you want to feel, that's going to inspire you to go after your goals and your dreams. And it's so much more than just the looks of the house. It's really for you. And so that's why I'm a very big believer on be very intentional about where you are. And you can always take your stuff with you. So
exactly. I love that. I absolutely love that, because you're right. The temptation is always there. And I know we pretty much have everything the way we want it, but there's other spaces that we want to get better at. But I feel like at the root of that, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we're always waiting. We're waiting for the right job, for the right person, for the right money, for the right place to actually feel like we're living. And I feel like, no, we're living now. And like you said, you don't know, you might be in your place longer or shorter, but thank goodness that you can care enough about yourself to live and feel good now, and not just wait for the perfect conditions or wait for something that's not here. Because as we know, the ego is all about something that's not here, or it's all about safety and security. Whereas like being present and aligned is all about this moment right now. So that's great. I love that.
And I think that people underestimate how much their space affects them. I have people sometimes like, let's say, like a friend, for example, I'm not talking about anyone specific, but there's been times when I've had a friend call me and maybe, she's going through a rough time or whatever. I'll literally be like, FaceTime me. And I'll be like, show me your apartment, show me your house. And there's crap everywhere. And I'm like, well, no wonder you don't feel good right now. Like you've got junk drawers, you've got piles of stuff and Amazon boxes that you just haven't thrown away. And it's like all those little things you don't think matter are really cluttering up your mind. Probably you're not even conscious of it. It's probably subconsciously, right? And so whenever I have like a friend or maybe a family member who's just like not feeling good, I'm like, just go clean your space. Honestly, like to me, that's like step one. And if you're ever in that situation, my advice would be like, if you're just like feeling down, literally grab a trash bag and you're going to just open up the trash bag and you're just going to walk around your house and you're just tossing all the things, whether it's like leftovers out of the fridge or like mail that you didn't throw away or whatever. Just toss. And that energy, I swear, ignites like this whole like refresh of your space and it will get you out of a funk, I promise. So
it's great advice. Great advice. It kind of brought me also to the question of, for people who maybe don't feel that joy yet, like you do with cleaning, how can they approach it without feeling overwhelmed? Because I'm sure keeping a clean house is a consistent thing. It's not like you just do it once and then you never have to do it again. So how can it be more either enjoyable or more manageable?
Let's talk about being manageable, because I think that that's more relatable, because I can't promise that I can make it enjoyable for everybody. Although I will say when it comes to maybe looking at cleaning differently, if you look at it more as like, I want to refresh the space, like think of it more from a design end, like what are some new cute throw pillows I can get, or a cute throw blanket, or what's a new candle scent I can light in my house to make it feel fresh in here. That might start to bring the joy. Like I know when I go to clean my house, I light candles before I start cleaning, because that smell of just like yumminess, just, I don't know, motivates me. So that might help you as far as like the joy side of cleaning. For me, to make it more manageable, I have this rule that at the end of every day, I have to spend 20 minutes refreshing the house. So I'll literally put a timer on, because I do love to clean. I have to like cut myself off, and my husband does not like to clean. So like we've come to an agreement that there's a 20-minute timer, and I just literally put it like on in the kitchen, and him and I would say, okay, we're tag teaming. You got the kitchen, I've got the bedroom, or whatever it is. And it's just however much you can clean in 20 minutes. You don't have to clean your entire house, but I swear to you, if you can do that every single day, just that 20 minutes, even 15, if that's intimidating, it helps you stay on top of it, make it manageable. One thing too that helps for me, and I've had some people yell at me like, oh, this is wasting water. And that could be like this whole debate. I don't want to get into that, but I really believe in running your dishwasher every day. And so I believe that if you have one, I didn't have a dishwasher in New York. I believe if you can load everything up at night and let it run, and then first thing in the morning when you're making breakfast, making your coffee, just put it away. That helps me manage things. Like just that one thing truly helps us stay on top of our house. If we don't do that, it all kind of starts to fall apart. So
both of those tips, actually, I think you've given me over the years, and I follow both of them and can 100% testify that they are a game changer. Because first of all, the timer, you can get so much more done than you realize. I set the 15-minute timer once to like a sink full of dishes. Like I had let them pile up. I was done and had like 5 minutes left. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought that was going to take 30 minutes.
Helps, doesn't it? It's kind of like, do you ever know, like when you have company coming over and your house is messy, like you clean so fast. And it's kind of that same energy. It's like having that timer on. It's like, okay, someone's coming, like this has got to get done. And it's the same thing. It's just like, this is it. And you'll move faster and it's easier. And honestly, if you're doing that every day, like it could be probably 10 minutes every night, and it just helps you stay on top of it. And it avoids what I call the tornadoes. Like I was telling my husband, I'm like, we can't have these like tornadoes every few weeks where it's just like, I mean, my house gets messy too, and I love to clean, but sometimes there'll be like these tornadoes. I'm like, what happened? Like literally it looks like a tornado came through our house, but it's like all those daily habits start to slip. And then that's how the tornado happens. So it really is being strict about them. But like, for example, last night, like I wasn't feeling very well. My husband wasn't feeling very well. We just kind of felt run down and it was late and there's a few little dishes. And I was just like, I know tonight it's better for me to go to bed earlier and wake up earlier and do that versus pushing my body at this moment. So, it's not like a hard rule and you just got to listen to your body and what feels right. But if you do in the morning, it's fine. So.
Absolutely. And I feel like the timer takes out the judgment or the feeling of overwhelm because you're just seeing what you can get done in 15 minutes. It's not like you're looking at your bedroom and closet and you're like, I have to do all of this. And then it's like, oh my gosh, but it's like, actually just whatever you can do in 15 minutes.
And I think too, like if you have children at home, like I've talked to some of my girlfriends who do, like they make it like a fun game with the kids too. Cause it's like, okay, how much can you do in your room or how many toys can you put away in 15 minutes? And you can kind of, trick your kids into cleaning and making it a game.
I love that. No, that's great. And then, okay, another thing that I was thinking about before we started talking, because sometimes I think, okay, being in New York City, it's easy to feel like, okay, I want to get rid of stuff because we're just in a smaller space and I don't want it around me. But then sometimes I look at different areas and like, I don't even know what I could get rid of. Like, how do I even look at a space and tell what is even worth getting rid of? Do you have like a process for that?
Let's start with furniture. So let's say you're looking around your house, like to your point, you're like, I'm looking at this corner. I don't even know what else I would do with it. I think the best thing anyone can do, regardless of where you're living or what your house does or doesn't look like. And I think sometimes people overbuy and they forget the power of rearranging. And this is something I learned from my grandmother because my grandmother, she actually grew up as an orphan in New York City and was foster home to foster home. And now she's created an amazing life for herself. She's very successful and she has a lot of beautiful things. But if you were to look at her house, you would honestly think she's spent millions and millions of dollars because that's how great it looks. But she's so thrifty from her background of being an orphan and like knowing how to like look for deals and all these things. And she's really taught me and instilled in me going to thrift shops and vintage and mixing old and new and just taking what you already have and moving it around. So I feel like, to answer your question, if you're feeling like in a rut with your place or your furniture, before you go buy, like my advice is always just to move around what you already have because you'd be amazed and think outside the box. Just because something's been in your living room doesn't mean it can't go in your bedroom or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like anything can go anywhere for the most part, right? Not like you're not going to put the bed from your bedroom into like your living room, but like, I mean, maybe in New York City you might, but but just take what you have and play with that. That's my advice for when it comes to furniture before you throw away, before anything. Because sometimes it might just be, hey, I need to just repaint that old desk and it's going to feel like new again. So I'm very big on like rearranging, refreshing, repurposing before you go buying. I also am very anti like everything being new all at once. I don't like the look of that. I always talk about this time when my brother had just graduated college. He was moving it, into his new job and career, and he had the means to buy everything all at once. And he needed everything like plates, cups, all the things. And so he was very much like, just get me in, get me done. Like, and we did, and it looked great, but like, it didn't have that same feel of like hunting for a special treasure and layering. And there is something to be said about going slow with your home. So take your time and just don't overlook what you already own. Cause I think you'd be surprised and you might fall in love with something again when it's just, you're looking at it differently or in a new light. So don't be scared to play. That would be my advice for that. For me, I probably throw too much stuff away. Like my husband would probably say that. I don't throw it away. I donate it. But I feel like I would rather get rid of things. And if I truly miss something, I can always go buy it again down the road. But I've honestly, in all my years of purging and cleaning and donating, there's been like once or twice I felt like I should have hung onto that shirt. Like it's very rare. And I do feel like it's something like, we've all probably seen like Marie saying, if it doesn't spark joy, I firmly believe in that. And so like if you're done with that book, like mail it to a friend who you think might like its message right now, or donate it or whatever. I'm very big about not bringing in more until you've kind of taken things out. Cause I hate clutter. I hate it so much. And if I am not actively using it, like I don't need it. And I think for clothes, it's hard for people because there's a lot of an emotional attachment, like, oh, I was wearing this with this memory or whatever. So one thing I do with clothes, if you're like a little bit on the fence about a piece of whether or not to keep it or not, is you can turn it around on your hanger. So it's like backwards. And they say to turn all your clothes backwards. And as you're wearing it, turn it forward. And then after 6 months, whatever is still facing backwards and you haven't worn it, if it's not seasonal, like toss it or donate it. Don't toss it. If you haven't worn it in 6 months, you're not going to wear it. And it's like, it's not there for you anymore. And the truth is, it's like the clothes that served us in like our early 20s, it's probably not who we are in our early 30s. I felt like a huge jump when I turned 30. Even now, like I'm still working on my closet. I'm like, this just doesn't feel like who I am anymore. You know what I mean? And so I think it's okay to like let things go. And I don't know if they answered it, but hopefully.
And granted, I like that approach as well, just because, well, when you mentioned sparking joy, like for people who don't have a design eye or don't even know, like for me, I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start with what you're feeling, what actually makes you feel good, and allow yourself that grace to play, like you said, and test different things out and, go to your website, see if you can get ideas. Like I feel like you're right. People a lot of times think it has to be one and done, or like it all has to happen at once, but no, it can be like a process. It can be just like an evolving journey, just like we are evolving people. And like you said, sometimes what we want in our 20s is not what we want to wear in our 30s. And so just letting it be this open like thing. And I just love that. I think it's great.
I think you need to leave those open spaces in your home for something special to come along. Because if it's all perfectly put together and designed at once, it's like you're not leaving room for that cool art piece you might see at a flea market one weekend. Like there's spots in my home that are very much empty because unless I'm like jumping up and down excited, it's a no. So like I always tell my design clients, I'm like, we're never going for like, we're always going for love. So if I present something to you and like, I like it, I'm like, no, it's not it. Like you have to love it. And I don't take offense. If you're not like, oh my gosh, like I will buy that no matter what the price is because I have to have it, like that energy, then it's a no for you. And I always tell people too, like, everyone's budgets are different, and what's expensive to somebody isn't expensive to somebody else, and what's affordable to somebody isn't affordable to somebody else. But what I can say to people is that regardless of where your budget is at, I really encourage people to go slow. You fell in love with this perfect nightstand and it's $1,500. It's expensive. I think that's an expensive nightstand personally, but there are a lot of nightstands in that price range. Are there ones outside of it? Of course, but that's the more pricey one. So let's say you fall in love with the $1,500 nightstand. It's like checks all the boxes, but you're going to go and settle for one that's like $500 because that's in the budget, which I totally get. Like I respect it. Trust me, I can shop on a budget. I had to do my house in IKEA for many, many years. To me, I would rather you go slow and truly buy what you love. And you know that $1,500 one's going to last you for years to come because the material is better. It's a timeless design, whatever, right? I'm just making this up. Not all expensive nightstands are timeless, but just let's pretend it is. I would much rather you go slow and get that thing you truly love because it's going to last with you. It's going to be passed down to people. To me, that's the bargain, right? Like some people say, oh, that's not a bargain. It's like, well, it's how you look at it. Right? Like it's going to last longer, or you're buying things that fall apart and end up in landfills and it's not helping the environment too. So it's all about perspective. I'm not talking down to anyone who buys something less expensive because trust me, I have things in my house from Target and it's all balanced. Like it's not one way or the other. But what I'm trying to get at is it's more about if you love it. If you love that thing from Target and it lights you up, that's it. That's your answer. But it really is about love is what I want you to go for when it comes to your house. So I hope that that's making sense. And I don't want people to feel like if they don't buy like an expensive nightstand, that it's wrong, because that's not true. It's just buying what you truly love, regardless of the price, is kind of what I'm going at. But also looking at things from a different perspective of like, sometimes that more expensive piece is better for the environment because it's not falling apart. It's not ending up in a landfill. It's staying in your home. It's being passed down. It's all perspective of how you look at it. So just food for thought.
Absolutely. And I'm going to pull out a few really awesome things that you said. just, I mean, the whole message is really powerful. You're right. Like it just is about what you feel, not about the price point or all those different factors that can go into it. And I just like after everything that you shared, I just envisioned like, this is our little world. Like our home is our little world. And to be that like confident and have that standard of like, I would rather wait and have a blank wall until I find that thing that excites me and gives me love. You are right that the energy of that is so much different than just throwing something up there or being like, oh, I can't afford it, so I'm going to just settle for something. And it's like, well, that the energy is just so different. And I think that's really powerful to point that out because everything in your home has an energy and it has like a representation of a part of you. And yeah, that was just very powerful to me.
And I think too, it's really important. And I know you talk about this so much in the good space. And I'm a huge believer in manifesting and being very careful about your language, like your internal language, right? If you're constantly telling yourself, I can't afford, I can't afford, I can't afford, that's going to be your story for the rest of your life. Forget furniture, just anything when it comes to money. And I know, because I've been there, I've been poor, I've been broke, and I've worked myself the other way strictly from changing the stories I was telling myself. And now I'm financially free and independent. And that is amazing, but it's because I changed my mindset, right? So I think too, when it comes to your home, it's like, you don't have to go from like, I can't afford to I can afford everything, because you're not going to believe that jump. But maybe you could go from, instead of saying I can't afford, to I'm open to creative ways of getting what I want for my home. I'm open to finding amazing things for my home in creative ways. For example, when I was poor and broke, this was like years ago, I remember I was living by myself in an apartment, and I was living by my brother at the time. And my brother has a ton of money and is very successful. And I had this huge wall in my apartment, and I knew it needed a piece of art. But at the time, I couldn't afford anything. Like I was really, really poor at the time. So what's cheap? Paint. And for anyone listening, if you want to make your house feel great and you are on a budget, paint. Like it will make your place feel new. You can buy paint for $30. So I painted this accent wall, actually painted it black, which sounds really bold, but it looked right in the space at the time. And I painted it black, and I said, you know what? I'm going to find the perfect piece of art there, and I'm open to it coming to me however it comes. Long story short, my brother needed me to like watch his dogs for like, I don't know, a long time or whatever. And he's like, I'll pay you. And I said, how about instead of paying me, you buy me this piece of art I saw that I want? And he's like, sure. It was a better deal for him. It was much cheaper than had he paid me whatever he was going to pay me to watch his dogs for several weeks. And I got my piece of art because I just opened my mind to like, I'm going to just manifest this art. I had walked into Home Goods. It was like gorgeous, and it was not that expensive, but for me, it was expensive at the time. And I got my piece of art, putting my mindset to like, I'm open to creative ways to get a piece of art on this wall when I had no money to do it. So I'm just saying that when we change our mindset, we can attract what we want. And I know you talk about that a lot, Francesca, in the good space, and it works with your house too.
I love that. That's such a great story. Like just even being open to a creative way came to you. And that's amazing. I'm going to work on doing that.
And it was like a win-win for both parties. Like he saved money, and for like his dogs, like I think he was going to like Thailand or something for like several weeks. And so, it would have been really expensive. He had 2 dogs at the time to like board both of them. And I was like, just give me this piece of art from Home Goods. Like I probably should have asked for more, but I was happy with that. And he was like, fine, great. That's a great deal. So everyone won. Yeah. And I still have that piece of art. I still have it. And I love it because when I look at it, I am reminded of the power of just asking the universe for what you want, and it's showing up in creative ways. And it's hard. Like, I know it's hard when like you're in that money mindset block to get out of it. It is hard to like make that transition, but I can promise you, if anyone is struggling with that, like I've gone through it, I'm on the other side and like thriving, and it really, it can change for you. So, but it just starts with the stories you tell yourself.
So with that, with the whole energy and mindset part of it, do you believe that you can create different like spaces in your home? Like corners or different rooms to have different purposes or to support you in different ways. Because I know someone in our audience was like, how do I create a quiet space in my home so that I can feel inspired to do my morning routine or to feel supported? And I was like, that's a really good question. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. It is a really good question. And, it's hard to give a general answer because everyone's space is different, obviously, right? So what I would suggest to one person is going to be different over somebody else if I was actually looking at their space. But I think, no matter what, whether you're living in a studio apartment, like I used to live in New York City, or you have a home with multiple rooms where it's much easier to make your space. Like you could have an office that's like that. For me, it's my office. Like this is my space. I've like really designed it to like exactly to me because this isn't my husband's space at all. And it's like, it's me. Not that my house isn't me, but obviously I'm more mindful of my partner when I design the rest of the house. So for me, it's my office and that's my quiet space. It's where I pray. It's where I visualize and do all the things. One thing I will say, regardless of whether or not you have the room to have that separate space, I think it's the little things that set you up. For example, like right here, I've got this candle that I'm like obsessed with. And this smell, like, I know it sounds crazy. It literally motivates me to work. Like I don't know what it is about it, but it motivates me. So I think even just like lighting a candle, like might tell yourself this is quiet time, or this is time to do journaling or whatever it is. Or another thing I'm huge on, regardless of where you're at financially, is always having fresh flowers in your house. I think bringing that, real life into your home, like that part of nature, something that God has created, it speaks volumes. And I've had fresh flowers in my house since I was 18, and a poor college student. It didn't matter to me. Like that was so important. I can go to Trader Joe's and get flowers for like $5.99. It might just be more about having that candle lit, having some fresh flowers, sitting down with your cup of coffee or tea in the morning to get into that space. I think it's more about creating habits and rituals, even more than the space. But I think wherever you do have that quiet time in your home, if it's not clean again, you're going to feel icky. So I really think prioritizing getting your home organized and clean is step one. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, I need a reset, I need a refresh, like before anything else happens, like we got to get your house clean, right? And throw away the papers you don't need. Like I hate junk drawers. Get rid of all the mess, things that aren't serving you anymore in 2022, and start there. And then you can, design your space. If you do have the room to have an actual space, then, I'm like looking, past this computer right now. Like I've got my vision board, and I actually have like images I've ripped out of magazines and things I've printed off online of, where I want to go. And I'm a big believer in vision boards. I know that they work. So, all those things help.
That's great. Now I'm like, great. I'm going to go clean my junk drawer and do all, like, I'm motivated now to do all that stuff. Cause yeah.
Oh, it makes you feel so much better. I'm not kidding. Like, I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but I know this will make me sound crazy. There's not one thing I don't know where it is in this house, like down to like the pens. Like I know where everything is. So if there's ever a time I can't find something, I lose my mind because I'm like, I have like this perfect catalog where I'm like, no, everything has its place. But if I don't need it, it's not here. You know what I mean? And the biggest lesson I took away, well, lots of lessons I took away from living in New York City. It's such a unique and amazing experience. But the one thing I really cherish and I will always appreciate is learning how much space you don't need in life. And, like I said, I lived in 490 square feet for almost 6 years. And you really learn in that experience, like we don't need that much stuff to be happy, to be healthy, to be safe, to be warm, to be cared for. And I'm not, suggesting we all need to live in 490 square feet, but it made me think, I'm never going, and I know this about myself, even though, down the road, I know I could probably afford whatever home I would want to. I don't want like this mammoth home with like all this square footage. It's just not for me, like to each their own. I don't need it. And I'm very much like, I don't like waste. So it's like, why would I need this home with like all the square footage for what? You know what I mean? Like, obviously if you have a lot of kids, it's one thing, but like, even with that, like I saw families in New York City raising 3 teenagers in a 2-bedroom apartment, and they were so happy. In fact, I know this amazing family. I won't name names because I didn't ask permission to share this, but they're incredible. And I just adore them. And they were raising 3 teenagers in New York City in a 2-bedroom apartment. And they were very well off financially, but like in New York City, having a 2-bedroom apartment, like you've made it, like that's incredible, you know? And this family, they're just such a special family and they're very close with each other. And the kids all shared this room and they had 3-level bunk beds. And 2 girls and a boy, they all slept in them and they were all very good friends and whatever. Long story short, they ended up leaving New York and moving out of state to another state and got the big house and all the things because they could afford it. You know, like it was like the dream home and all the things we think we want, have to have and whatever. And they moved back to New York. They moved back. I actually remember talking with the kids and them saying, I prefer to live in New York City in the 2-bedroom apartment, sharing a room with my siblings than all the things. And I thought that was really interesting, you know, because it's like, you know, society tells us you have to have this big home and the cars and all this stuff. And you just don't, you don't.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I really love that. And it's funny because I know a family who live in a big house, rented a place in New York for the summer with their 5 kids. And they felt the same way going back home. They're just like, we actually liked being closer together and experiencing a different way of living. And you're right. It's more about like, why do I actually need this? Like questioning why you need more or less or any of those things. I think that's a really powerful example and tool to like have is to start questioning a little bit more and really being deliberate and intentional with your space. And so that was really awesome.
I don't think it's about square footage. Like I have another girlfriend here that she's always like, oh my gosh, my house is so small. Like it's not nice because it's small, and her house is beautiful. And it's actually the way that space is used makes a big difference. Like going back to my studio apartment, while it was under 500 square feet, it was actually laid out so well. It felt bigger than that. And the same could be said for any space. If it's laid out correctly, it can feel bigger than it is. And my friend here, she's always like, oh, my house is, you know, it's not that big. So she's like always talking down about it. And I'm like, this house is gorgeous. Like, I don't give a crap like how big something is. Like, it's well designed. She's got amazing taste and you feel good in it. And like, that is an amazing home. Like, so, you know, I do wish in America, we would get over this like obsession with like more and more and more and like bigger, bigger, bigger. Cause it's not better in my opinion.
Exactly. And I think that's the underlying principle is that most of us are conditioned to think more is better, expensive is better, but not necessarily. Like that actually is not a true principle in all cases. Like in some cases, sure, like more expensive might mean better, but not necessarily. And I think it's what we value and place value on. And if we can start questioning what values we're placing on things.
I agree with you. But I think when it comes, you know, for like in my industry, when it comes to like furniture, for example, obviously it being more expensive does translate to a better quality. However, the cool thing about living in 2022 that we have as an advantage that, you know, like my grandmother's generation, for example, didn't have is we have so many resources for good design, regardless of budget. Like I mentioned earlier, like I actually love IKEA and thank goodness for IKEA because that's all I could afford for a long time. And the reason I love places like that is because there's still good design. Just because a certain budget's not there shouldn't be an excuse for not having a well-designed home. And we're so lucky to live in a time where regardless of what your expenses are, you can have an amazingly beautiful, well-designed home regardless, you know, like sure, is IKEA furniture going to last as long? Probably not, but it will serve you for that season and that purpose. You know what I mean? And to me, nowadays, there's no excuse to not have good design where, you know, when my grandmother was growing up, there was an excuse because it was just, they didn't have those resources, right, that we have.
So basically being creative about how you can have the kind of home you want to have. Like we have that luxury. Yeah.
There's no reason to not have an extremely well-designed home in 2022, in my opinion, because there's beautiful furniture at any budget. Like the only thing I said, it's the quality. Is it going to maybe last as long? Probably not. That's okay, because by the time that's done, you probably will be able to afford something else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. What books are you reading right now?
Ooh, right now I'm reading a book called A Return to Love, which I love it.
Marianne Williamson?
Marianne Williamson, yeah.
It's great.
Did you read it?
Yeah, I did. It's really good.
I think it's honestly, I read a lot of books. I think it's one of my all-time favorites. Like, in fact, I started reading it just recently, a few months ago, and I bought it for like 10 people and like immediately mailed it to them as like early Christmas gifts because I was so excited. Because I was like, if you can just read this, no matter like where you're at in your life, like you're going to feel so good.
100%. It's like one of those books that you'll pick up and like read again throughout your lifetime.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those books I definitely recommend, like a hard copy, because it's like, there's so much that it's like, you have to like absorb it and reread it and take it in. Cause it's just powerful thing after powerful thing after powerful thing. You know what I mean? So it's like, you kind of have to like pause and like take it in, reread it again. You're like, whoa, that just shifted everything for me mentally. And I just like need a second. Where if I was just listening to it on audio, I don't think I'd absorb it as much, if that makes sense.
For sure. Oh, love that. Well, good. Taylor, thank you so much for all your amazing tips and thoughts and ideas about creating a quiet space or just having a home that makes you feel good. I know a lot of people will love what you've shared, and I can't wait to share this with everyone. So can you tell us where we can find you, how we can keep staying connected to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say one more thing before I go. If there's anything you can take away from today, I really think it is about cleaning your space first and foremost, maybe refreshing it. You know, I challenge anyone listening to like move their sofa, move their desk around, move anything around, move frames from different rooms around and see how you feel. Always have fresh flowers, light a candle. And I think those things alone will make you feel good. And doing my nightly routine, just put that timer on. Like, I think all those things can like help you. So, and as far as where to find me, you can read on my blog, hometailored.com. So it's home and then my name, TAYLORED.com. And then my Instagram handle and on TikTok, it's at home.tailored. Again, Taylor with an ED. But yeah, those are like the main spots. I'm like really into TikTok now. Like I love it so much, which I never thought I would say.
Your videos are great. Like
Thank
really,
you.
They just like give me so much peace seeing your beautiful house. So yeah, if you want to see how beautiful her house is and also get tips, you definitely need to follow. And we'll make sure that all of those things you said are linked in the show notes.
Well, what I like about TikTok in general, and if anyone's listening and they're like rolling their eyes at TikTok, because I really rolled my eyes at it for a long time. And thank goodness I have a younger sister who's a Gen Z, and she really like encouraged me to like finally go on. Comparing to like Instagram, what I love about TikTok is I feel like the whole platform is set up and the content that people are creating is to teach, to share tips or tricks. And I feel like that's the whole vibe of the place. It's very much like a learning environment for everyone. Like, you know, here's how to do this or whatever. Like, I feel like after scrolling, like I feel like a better person because I've like learned a new recipe or seen a cool new workout or, you know, learned something to do in my house. Where like Instagram, it's very much like that thing we're all burnt out of, like the comparison game, because it tends to be more photos than video, even though I know Instagram is trying to push video. It's easier to like have this perfectly framed picture, and you allow people's imaginations to fill in the blanks of whatever they think is or isn't true. You know, it might not be correct, but with video, it's like, it's there. Do you know what I mean? And I just feel like it's a much more raw and honest place. So I'm loving it. If you're not there.
I love it. I know TikTok for me, I just laugh. Like that to me is like where I go for therapy for like laughing too. So yeah, it's like all good stuff.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Now it's time for an affirmation. I am open to creative possibilities for things to come into my home. If you found today's tips inspiring or thought-provoking, share it right now on social media and make sure to tag me at Francesca A. Phillips or at Find Your Good Space, and also weigh in the comment section at findyourgoodspace.com. You can find links in the show notes. And if you have a spiritual or mindfulness problem that you want me to unpack on an upcoming The Good Space episode, or an awesome manifesting story you want to share, give my podcast phone line a ring right now at 917-719-0867. Also, don't forget to download my free morning routine guide. It's what helped me reduce my anxiety, increase productivity, and so much more. The link to everything I mentioned is in the show notes. See you soon.